time. Ladies and gents, here we are in the second week of January. It is the 15th. We are already halfway through the very first month of the very first year 2023. That blows my mind. Uh, it's so funny. I remember Mr. Brown. He's my speaking muse, and he called me right before I got on this call, and he was giving me his experience because I sent him the recording of the call last week, and I remember something he said. This was years ago. I was doing a play called Jim of the Ocean, and Mr. Brown had come in town to see the play, and I brought him backstage to meet the entire cast. And some of you may have heard this story, but it was such an amazing thing. And then I'll tell you the point of what I'm saying. So the play that I was doing, Jim of the Ocean, August Wilson, two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. He was the first African-American playwright to have a theater on Broadway named after him, August Wilson. And we had just buried him shortly before this production in his hometown of Pittsburgh. So Mr. Brown was in town, and he came to see me in the play. And after the play, we went for a walk. And I remember this was after, because I bumped to the dressing room, we hung out, we talked. All the cast knew who he was. They were so enamored with him being backstage, and he was just as enamored with them because he just saw them on stage. And if you know anything about Mr. Les Brown, he's very giving. His energy's always on 100. And we were sitting in the dressing room just chopping it up for about 2 hours. Okay, the play was 3 hours, just so y'all have some context. So it was about 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we left the theater. So Mr. Brown and I are walking downtown Pittsburgh just after 1 a.m. And as we're walking, this dude is pushing a shopping cart, and he's clearly homeless. He has all of his goods and clothing and all that in the shopping cart. He's walking, and he looks up and he sees Les Brown. He says, "I know you. You're the motivator, man. The motivator. I can't believe that you're in front of me right now. Would you sign my shirt?" And he was so excited. And Les was like, "Sure." So he was like, "Oh, I don't have a pen. Hold on a second. I'll be right back." So my man leaves his cart and just disappears around the corner. I don't know where he's going. So we are still walking down this street because his car, or where he's parked, is not far, the garage. And as we're walking, there's a group of young men, and they're coming to cross the street, but they're coming across our face. There's about 3 or 4 of them. Some of them had the pants sagging and all that. These are hip hop kids, clearly. And one of them says, "Hey, I know you. You're that guy that be motivating people, aren't you? I've seen some of your stuff. You the motivational speaker." And I'm looking for cameras or something. Like, what is this? Are we being punked right now? Like, what's going on here? And sure enough, as soon as they cross the street, the man comes back with a pen, a Sharpie in his hand, and has Les Brown sign his shirt. This is the power of intention, the power of purpose, the power when you decide who you want to be. So, and I'm going to come back to that. But here's what Les said. He said this on a call before he came. He said, "Life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it runs out." So, and that always stuck with me. Like, because you hear people, I would always hear my elders say, "I don't know where the time went." I mean, it just seemed like yesterday you was just knee high to a grasshopper, and now I don't know where the time. I remember my kids when they were toddlers, and now they're out of college. I don't know where the time went. And that has always stuck with me about perspective. So here we are, and we're 2 weeks in 2023. And so when you look at some of the things that we explored last week in terms of the pattern recognition and the accountability mirror, and really looking in that mirror and calling ourselves out on some stuff. And I think that's so important because there's so much happening in the bandwidth of life. All of you have duties and obligations and responsibilities, and many of you are business owners and your parents and your spouses and your career professionals and you're athletic and you're active and you're doing different things. You're charitable and you're giving, you're volunteering, you're going to church, you're serving for your church, your disciples, so most of you have multiple roles that you are carrying out in your life. And so it's easy to not take that personal inventory and have that conversation in the mirror of life where we can be honest with ourselves and say, damn, man, I fell short here. This is not where I expected to be at this juncture. And putting it on the recording device in your phone and then playing it back, it's a trip. When I'm listening to myself in the accountability mirror, that just messes me up. It gets me fired up. It's so raw because it's your voice. No one is going to have greater weight, they shouldn't, than your own voice. So when you're calling yourself out, there's something really powerful about that. So here we are. And the two core questions we're going to talk about today. Who do you want to be? And what do you want? Who do you want to be? What do you want? I told you the story about Les Brown because at some point along the journey, he made a decision about who he wanted to be. Here's the tricky part about life. It happens to most of us. It happens to us. We don't happen to it. And sometimes, we're moving through life and we're doing things that maybe we have a facility for, but it may not be our purpose. You may be really good at math and you decide to become an engineer because you have a facility to be an engineer. You're very successful. You may have a career in that field, but that's not your purpose. You may have a knack for teaching. And so you go into the teaching profession and you give and you love because you love children and you want to pour into them. And as good as you are at that, that may not be your purpose because you never took the time to really ask yourself the question, who do I want to be? Someone else was telling you who you already were. Parents have expectations and they put that on their children. Elders and teachers and leaders in the community have expectations at times and they put that on their student, their pupil. And so that person follows a path without really having a clear idea, in terms of their internal mechanism. This is what I really want to do. Sometimes we just do stuff because we got to do something, right? Got to work, got to pay the bills. How many of y'all ever had a conversation with someone about the work they do? And you ask the question, how did you get here? And they say something to you like, I was looking for a job. And next thing I know, I was doing well. And I found that I was pretty good at it. And 20 years later, I'm still here. You ever had that conversation? I know you have. You ask someone, if you could have your life any way you wanted to, what would it look like? Sometimes they give you a completely different answer than the life that they're actually living right now. And so that tells me that that question and that conversation was never really seriously had. And because of conventional teaching and programming, the way the educational system is set up, many of us grew up and were indoctrinated in that idea of pursuing a certain path that's very linear. High school, graduate, college, higher probability of getting a good paying job. Graduate school, higher probability of getting a good paying job. Take on student loan debt. Now you must find a job to pay off the student loan debt. Harder to find a job, but this is the instruction that many of us were given. So a lot of times you'll find people, how many of y'all have ever met or seen or talked to a nurse and they said to you, I got into nursing because it pays good. I I got into this particular field because it pays good, not because it's my purpose. It's a practical decision because folk got bills to pay. Can't be mad at anybody for that. But I must go back to the question, who do you want to be? And if we don't ever really seriously take the time to ask the question, then we may be missing out on greater fulfillment. We may be missing out on greater income. We may be missing out on a greater assignment. We won't know until we have that important conversation. So I didn't know. I didn't have that conversation with myself. I followed the formula. And when I went to college, I made the decision that if I was going to be there, that I would make the most of my time there. And under the circumstances that I was barely accepted into college, I knew I didn't have any wiggle room to mess it up. I had to get down to business. When I graduated with that psychology degree that I knew was not going to be of much value in the marketplace unless I went back to school and got a PhD, I didn't really know what to do. That's why when I had the conversation with the elder, and the elder told me, you need to go down to Karamu, the oldest Black theater in the country, because you're a performer. And that's when I put the pieces together. And I was like, that's true. And when I started spending time in conversation with myself, I was able to make a conscious decision. This is who I want to be. I want to be a great actor. I never, ever said, I want to be on TV. I want to be in movies. I want to be a star. Never had that conversation with myself. Only conversation I had was, I want to be a great actor. I want to know that when I walk in the room, everyone's going to know this brother's going to deliver. Like if we hire him, he's going to do a job better than anyone else that could have done that particular role. That was my mindset. That was my internal conversation. So I made the decision, this is who I want to be. And then everything that I did came out of alignment with that decision. Now write this word down, alignment. Alignment gives you tremendous capacity and power, because now you're incapable of allowing something into your space that's not in alignment with your purpose and who you want to be. So there was nothing that I was going to do that would compromise that outcome of who I wanted to be at that time in my journey. So I was thinking about it constantly. I was in conversation with myself about it constantly. It was a daydream in real time. I was constantly living in my future. And listen, you all, it would make more sense if I just made all this stuff up. It would make more sense to you all instead of it being real. And here's what I mean. When we talked about last week, the importance of having that affirmation. And by the way, just so you all know, I am so happy and grateful now that I am a great actor. Fill in the blank for yours. I am so happy and grateful now. Now is an operative word. The reason you say I am so happy and grateful now that I am emceeing 10 events every month in this particular arena, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have shed 20 pounds and I am in the best shape of my life, is because when you're living in your future, you're literally bringing the future to the present. And when you bring the future to the present, it creates an inevitable outcome. So let me tie it into what I'm saying. So because I made that decision, when I would go to empty theater spaces on Mondays, because most theaters are dark on Mondays, and I would do monologues in front of empty spaces, but I would image people in the audience, and I would be playing to politicians, teachers, dignitaries, leaders, business people, et cetera, I was very, very much living in the future, but I was living in the now. It was now. The feeling that I had was now, even though I was nowhere near being a full-time working actor. I was doing community theater. It cost me $50 a week because I had to pay for my costumes, my makeup and costume. So we were renting it. So understand that your current circumstances are not your conclusion, and your vision has to be more compelling than your current circumstances. And when you live in that future, it overrides the senses of now. What happens with most people is that they can be so inundated with trial and tribulation that they can't see more than 6 inches in front of their face because there's so much stuff coming. There's so much drama and overwhelm and challenge and pull and stress because they're not where they want to be. And I just got laid off and I haven't been able to find a job. I'm 2 months behind on my rent. I can't get groceries this week. My lady just left me. My kids are acting like they ain't got no sense at all. And it's just a lot, Ed. I can't even, you talking about living in my future, bro. I'm living in my tragedy, man. I ain't talking about no future. Like, this is hard. And so people are so overwhelmed with their current circumstance that that's all they focus on. And if that's all you focus on, you all know this, what you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. It's easy to marinate in one's misery. It's much more difficult to embrace a brighter and more fulfilling future that's not here yet, and to allow yourself to believe in that fully and to live that fully and to embrace that fully. It's very difficult to do. It's why most people don't do it. They would rather watch someone else live out their fantasy, even if that someone else is an actor portraying somebody else in a television show or a movie or a soap opera. It's an escape because they don't want to do the work themselves up here. This is where all the stuff is getting done, ladies and gentlemen. It's up here. So watch this. Because I was in alignment, it means everything that I'm doing is in service to that outcome. Sid Arthur, the book by Herman Hesse, he said, you must be so focused and so committed to the outcome that you will say no to everything and anything except the thing that gets you to your outcome. You're going to say no to anything and everything except the thing that gets you to your outcome. So even though I had a hustle job that I didn't like, paid the bills, even when I was on my job, I was living in my future. Even when I was dealing with people that I had to work with that I didn't care for, I was living in my future. And when I wasn't on my job and I was in the car going from work to home, I was living in my future. When I went to bed at night, I was dreaming in my future. When I woke up in the morning, I was living in my future. Getting up early to go to a job that I didn't want to go to, I was living in my future. I would image outcomes. Specifically, I would grab covers of magazines. This is why images and words and experiences are so important. I would grab magazines with people on the cover, i.e. Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, and I would read the article, but I would have the pictures and I put them up. And I would image working with individuals like that, the caliber of that, or that person in particular. I had no business believing that, because again, at the time, I'm doing community theater. That's crazy. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. What are you talking about? But you know what happened, right? You all know the rest of the story. I ended up working with Spike Lee. It was my very first movie. It was called Bamboozled. because I bamboozled him at a screening premiere for Malcolm X. And he was like, who is this kid walking up on me with all this confidence and bravado, handing me his resume, talking about he knows I only work with great actors. Yeah, I said that. I looked him dead in his eye. I said, I know you only want to work with great actors, right? Gave him my resume. 2 weeks later, I was cast in this film, my very first movie, Bamboozled. Working with Denzel. I'm in California. Agent calls, hey, they're doing Broadway, Julius Caesar, Denzel's leading the cast. They want to see you. They want to see me. They've already seen me. I'm doing it. It's a wrap. That's done. Because I'd already made up my mind about that years ago. I didn't know when. I just knew that I was committed. Who do you want to be? Who you've been up to this point is irrelevant to who you want to be. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. If you want to be more of what you are now, great. If that's working for you, getting you all of those results and helping you live your greatest life, and you want to be more of that, fantastic. If you have a career track, gentleman that I was with him, this was 2.5, 3 weeks ago at the Maltz Museum. And it was at a civil rights dedication. And his wife, I went to high school with. And his story was so incredible, and a couple of you may have heard it. He used to be a mechanic. In high school, he got really good at tinkering with cars. He didn't want to go to college. He figured out that if he were very integrity-based in his business, he would get more business, because he noticed a lot of his friends would come to him and say, hey, I took my car to this mechanic. They ripped me off. And so he built up a reputation as someone who was not only reliable, but would do exactly what he said he would do. 25 years later, had a very, very successful auto mechanics mini empire. I think he had about 4 or 5 locations, and everybody just knew this is who you go to. And so he decided that he wanted to get his degree. He never got his college degree. So he's got some money now. He's got a little bit of time freedom. He goes back to get his college degree. In the process of getting his degree, he has to take some of the general requirements, and one of those classes was biology. He takes biology, falls madly in love, and realizes, I want to be a doctor. He's in his 50s when he has this realization. He's in his marriage with 3 children, small children. His wife works in healthcare, my friend that I went to high school with, and he decides, ladies and gentlemen, who do I want to be? I want to be a doctor. Yeah, but you're known all throughout the city as an awesome mechanic. You've been doing that for 25 years. What are you talking about? You want to be a doctor? You can't just switch careers like that, can you? Like, can you do that? You can do that? I didn't know you could do that. He's like, yeah, I'm in. And this brother went to work because he understood, had nothing to do with what he was, had nothing to do with the stellar reputation he built up. He decided, I want to be someone else. So when you're asking yourself this question, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, he's in his residency right now as we speak. He will be a certified practicing physician, but he's working now in his residency. And he's, I think he's pushing late 50s. So the story's powerful. If you all want to, you can Google it. If you just Google Cleveland mechanic turns doctor, you'll find the article, and you could read the story, like read the details of it. So my point is that that's the beauty of the journey that we're on. And I know some of you are looking at your stat sheet. You're looking at your stat sheet and you're trying to determine, can I really have this based on my stats? Because my stats don't really measure up, Ed. I really want to have this. But Bob Proctor, he said, most people, they don't go for what they really want. They go for what they think they can get. That just gave me the chills right now. They don't go for what they really want. They go for what they think they can get. And if we understand that our thinking is a natural limitation and that most people think way too small, then you all know how that ends up. Well, no. What do you really want? What do you really truly want with all of your heart and mind and body and soul when you look at the greatest outcome for your life and your circumstances? Because here's what I know: whatever it is that you want, someone within 3 miles in any direction of where you live right now is living that life. Somebody within 3 miles of wherever you live in any direction is living the life that you really truly want. So we know it's available. We know it's achievable. We know that other people are doing it. Why not you? Why not you? Because you keep looking at the stat sheet. Yeah, but Ed, this is what I used to be, and here's what I've done up to this point, and here's who I've been all these years, and I'm not really super excited about these results, and I've been very weak in this area over here, and I'm not too great over here. Why would I think that I could just be a totally brand new person? That's called creation. We are creators. We have that power. What's the phrase, Monica? I've been given dominion and authority over everything that liveth and breatheth upon the earth. From the Bible. I remember reading that. I'm paraphrasing. If we've been giving dominion and authority over everything that liveth and breatheth upon the earth, why can't we reinvent ourselves? Sister Madonna, a nun, practicing nun, decides in her 60s that she wants to start competing in Iron Woman and triathlon competitions. Never worked out a day in her life. Who do you want to be? She said, I want to be an athlete, a competitor. But you've never even worked out. What are you talking about? You're in your 60s. Yes, but I can compete. She's in her 80s now. She's done over, watch this, she's done over 50 Iron Woman competitions and triathlons. Over 50. Still doing her thing. Whatever is in the seed of your being, deep down inside, if you could have whatever you want to have, because you know that the thing that you want to produce and create in your life, it's for not just your benefit, but for other people's benefit. You understand that if I do well, if I reach and achieve those things that are meaningful to me, I'm going to be able to do so much more for those who are meaningful to me, for my family, for my community. I'll be a better example. I can walk into a room and lift people up. I'll be able to give more and contribute more. That's why I have the dream. So if you don't follow through, you're not just letting yourself down. You're letting hundreds, if not thousands of people down. There's so much more at stake than just your little tiny petty fears and excuses and rationalizations as to why you can't have what you really want. So T.R. Becker asked the question during the Millionaire Mind Intensive. This was many years ago in Seattle. He said, you know why most people don't get what they want? No, T. Harv. Why? Because most people don't know what they want. They don't know. If you're living your life in overwhelm and you barely have enough time to change your draws, let alone think about your goals and your dreams, life is just going to run you over. You know what I like to do? I like my son. He loves Michael Jackson. He was doing Smooth Criminal when he was like 2.5. He had the whole, like the hat. He put the hat tilted over his head. He do the little patterns, right? he says to me one day, he says, Dad, I want to go to the graveyard and I want to go at night. I said, why? Why you want to go to the graveyard at night? What kid wants to do that? He said, because I want to see Michael Jackson and the Thriller dancers. I was like, okay, I don't know if we're gonna see the Thriller dance if we go to the graveyard, but I did not see that coming. Didn't see it coming. But you know what I do? Whenever I go, if I'm driving past a graveyard, I slow down and I start counting the tombstones, as many as I can count while I'm driving safely, but I'm just counting them. And I'm asking myself the question, how much did you take with you? How much did you leave behind? I love Les Brown's talk, live full, die empty, live full, die empty. In other words, give everything you have to the time that you're here. Because when I look at those tombstones, instinctually, I can feel it that most of those people just took a lot of good stuff with them because they didn't let it out. They were too busy struggling. They were too busy surviving. They were too busy being overwhelmed. They were too busy not wanting to sacrifice. They were too busy not making it a priority. They were too busy not to sit down and ask themselves the question, who do I really want to be? They were too busy making excuses. They were too busy rationalizing and justifying why they can't have what they really want. They were too busy. And so by the time they realized that they don't have to be as busy anymore, it was too late. It's too late. Miles Monroe, the late, great Miles Monroe, he said it. The richest place in the world is not in the coltan mines where they have children in the Congo mining the very material that powers these bad boys right here. It's not there. It's not in the diamond mines. The greatest and richest place in the world is in the cemetery. Yes. That's where you're going to find all of those unsung songs and unwritten books and unrealized potential and untapped into capacity and dreams deferred. That's where you're going to see all of the richness that could have been that never will be. Who do you want to be? What do you really want? And see, some of you, the way that you're going to get there, you're going to have to be a little more physical, meaning you got to get up and jump around and you got to like, let's go. There's a reason why when you look at athletes, some of them, many of them have a particular ritual that they go through before they perform at a peak level. And sometimes it's a hand signal that they do to each other. Sometimes they get in a huddle and they say, what time is it? Game time, woo, right? They have something that is an anchor before they perform. And what I'm suggesting to each and every one of you is that you take some time out and you do something that anchors yourself so you get fired up for your goals and your dreams. You get fired up for your greatness. You get fired up for what's been inside of you. And you know it's been just waiting for a way to come out because you've been smothering it with all of your laziness and excuses and buried in your misery and feeling sorry for yourself. You've been smothering it and it's been trying to get out. And so what happens is you start moving around, you start jumping around, and it's like, okay, wait a minute. He's starting to wake up now. He might be ready to tap into us. We're ready to come out. We've been ready to come out. We just need you to let us out. She's good to go now. She's starting to move around. So you do something physical, you get fired up. Then you ask yourself, what do I really want? What do I really want? If I can have anything that I want. See, you got to make more noise. You got to create more energy than the energy that's been suppressing you all this time. See, there's been energy that's been suppressing you. The energy of a breakup, the energy of a toxic workplace, the energy of being broke, the energy of not being physically fit, the energy of emotional eating, the energy of hanging around pigeons instead of eagles, the energy of procrastination, the energy of excuses. See, all of that is energy working against your greater good. And so in order to combat that, you're going to have to get energetic about what it is that you really want, because that's going to help you get to the greater good. It's an energy. It's a movement that you do. And I don't care who's looking at you. I don't care if people looking at you like you're crazy. You got family members like, what are you doing? Why are you so fired up? Now, if you were watching a game, if you was watching a contest, the playoffs, and you was up there yelling and screaming at the TV, they just excited about the game. They excited about somebody else living their dream. You watching the World Cup last month, people hollering and going crazy, watching somebody else live their dream. Why can't we be just as excited for ourselves? Why? We deserve that. And that's the power. So it's a personal conversation that is ongoing. Who do I want to be? And once you make that decision, you don't compromise. When I made the decision, this is how certain I was. I made a decision that not only was I going to be a great actor, but I was going to carry myself and earn my worth. And I remember there was a play I was doing, and it was a multiple city tour. And so the first leg of the tour was in Buffalo, New York. And then from Buffalo, New York, we would go to Rochester, New York. And so we were in Buffalo and we were selling out, like the houses were selling out. Now, the way the contracts were negotiated, they signed us for each leg of the tour. So I signed a contract for Buffalo, and then I would re-sign a contract for Rochester, New York, okay? Now, I'm the lead. I'm in every single scene, okay? Now, I have an understudy, but I'm the lead. And I'm looking at the dynamics of this theater, and I'm seeing that we're not only did we sell out where we were, but we had already sold out where we were going. And so when it came time to negotiate for, when it came time for the second contract to come up and be signed, I wanted to renegotiate the fee because I'm looking at the numbers. And this is literally all I asked for, you all. All I asked for, I said, I want you to pay me the cost of one ticket on each check, each weekly check. And that would have been like $125, y'all, $125. I said, I want the cost of one ticket. That's what I want you to pay me. And I said, we've already pre-sold. So I know y'all have the money. And so my agent is like, oh, he was surprised that I had made that request. Well, I knew my value. I knew my worth. I was working really hard. He calls the producer. Producer says, no. Agent calls me back. He says, oh, they said no. I said, well, did they say no? Or did they say, well, we'd like to, Ed, but we have, this expense and we have some other. He said, no, they didn't offer any explanation. They just said no. I said, oh, okay. Well, I'm going to exercise my right and you can just take me out of the contract. I'm leaving. I'm going back to New York. I'm going back home after Buffalo. My agent was like, what? I was like, it's in my contract. I have the option. I can leave. He was like, okay. So he calls the producer back. Producer doesn't like that. Producer calls the casting agent. So the casting director is the person that puts all of us in these plays. They're the ones that really get us in the room. He calls the casting agent to put pressure on me to sign the contract. Not to say, well, can we figure out a way to get him paid? No, can you make him just sign the contract and take what we're paying him? So the casting agent inserts themselves and they're like, well, you tell Ed that he needs to sign this contract because if he doesn't, he's going to make us look bad and then we're not going to be able to submit him anymore. My agent told me that. I was like, you have lost your mind. I said, first of all, I don't work. I'm not here without them and they're not there without me. It's a collaboration. But I'm the only one that has to be on stage for 3 hours every night, not you. So don't try to come at me like I'm some low-level employee that you going to just, what, you think I'm scared? Like you think I need them? I don't need them. My agent is like trembling. I can hear his voice trembling on the phone. Okay. Let me work this out. I'm going to call you back, Ed. I'm going to call you right back. Y'all, I swear, we went back and forth for about 2.5 hours. And when I made it clear that I was about to book my ticket to fly back home, and they could put the understudy up or whatever, like it wasn't my problem. All of a sudden, like magic, okay, no problem. I said, you're gonna take me through all of this drama when you had the money. All you had to do was say yes in the first place. And you know what I said? I said, you know what? It's the way that you handled it. If you had come to me in the very beginning and said, you know, I don't really, you know, we're on a tight budget. We're a theater. You know, we don't have, like, this is a great show for us, but we have other shows. Like, if they had offered any sort of respectful reply, I would have been open to negotiating. It could have been anything. All right, well, give me an extra airline ticket. Let me fly somebody, like something. But you want to come at me like I'm just like some Joe Schmo? Doesn't work. Now, the reason I'm sharing that is because I decided a long time ago, before I got my first job, who I wanted to be. And I stayed in alignment with that. When nobody was blowing up my phone, when I had no work, when I wasn't getting paid, I decided who I wanted to be. Some of you are wanting to be very successful entrepreneurs, very successful in your career, very established and you're not there yet, but you got to go there before you go there. You have to go there before you get there. You got to live that. It's the root that bears the fruit. And so what's internal, there's a reason why you look at an oak and you see this oak, and it's not the oak that is overwhelming, ladies and gentlemen, it's what's underneath. If you were to understand just how long and deep and thick and wide and intricate the roots are of that powerful oak tree, you would never question the veracity of an oak tree. You would just look at it and say, I know what's underneath. It's the roots that are so strong. And so when you decide who you want to be and you figure out what you really want, not what you think you can get, what you really want, then you get to work on the roots. Words, images, experiences. Words, images, experiences. Inner conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very difficult, okay? I understand it's hard to have a conversation that's empowering with yourself when all hell is breaking loose in your life. It's very hard to have an empowering vision that you see clearly when everything around you looks like chaos and destruction. It's very difficult to hold on to an outcome that is empowering and uplifting when people that you thought you could trust have let you down. When you had security, it's no longer there. When you are berating yourself for shortcomings and failures instead of taking the time to focus on where you want to go. This is not easy. What I'm telling you, it's not easy to do. It's necessary. It's important. It has to happen in order for you to ascend. This is why we have such regard for the man or the woman who has overcome so many different obstacles in order to create the success in their life. Booker T. Washington said, it's not what I look at in terms of the man or woman who has achieved success. I look at what they had to overcome to get there. So in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who sacrificed so much more than any of us will ever be asked to, in honor of what he set forth in motion, by having the boldness and the courage to dream a dream that he knew he was not going to live to see. So much of what we do is sowing and reaping, and where we sow, we may not necessarily reap, but we have to begin that process, because then we begin to understand it's not just about us. It's about who's coming after us. It's about how we're going to message and impact our children and our loved ones. It's that opportunity for us to leave an imprint based on the work that we do today. So get clear. And when you are clear, I appreciate what you all sent me last week. Send me, if you're willing, send it to me, text it to me, email it to me, whatever you want, who you want to be, and what do you really want. And we'll see you guys next week, same time, same station. Have an awesome and amazing week. Appreciate you all. Much love.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Fire call. Good night, y'all.
Love y'all.
Much love, everybody.
One man come in the name of love. One man come and